Welcome to the Weigh In Podcast, your prescription for a healthier life, where wellness is more than just a number on a scale. We'll dive deep into not just weight loss, but the medical, emotional, and lifestyle aspects of well-being.
In each episode, we'll weigh in on hot topics ranging from diet myths and exercise trends to mental health and chronic disease management, providing you with the evidence-based advice to guide your health decisions. Remember, it's not just about the weight on the scale, but about creating a healthier, more balanced you.
Hello, how's it going?
I'm good. I've been listening to Taylor Swift's album that just came out a couple days ago.
I saw that and I was like, she's going to be so hype.
You know what? I've kind of been going in and out of Taylor Swift. Right now, I really do like her. I like that we're the same age. So I'm a little bit jealous, but she's got a lot going for her. I like that she has a whole army and whatnot.
A literal army. You Swifties are as terrifying as the beehive for Beyonce.
Yeah, but I watched her concert on Disney Plus and I was just really impressed with how she keeps up for 3 hours straight and remembers all her songs, does all the dance moves. And I read that she will run on the treadmill or walk or something while performing her songs. And that's how she stays on top of it. So I thought that was really cool.
That's really amazing. And it totally makes sense. Like these performers are so impressive because they perform for like hours and hours and they don't look tired. They still look cute.
Yeah.
When I was at the Beyonce concert this summer, I'm like, girl, aren't you tired?
Yeah, I know.
She was barely sweating. I'm like, don't you need a water break? Don't you need a nap? I would need a nap. So
no, they are conditioned. And like Taylor Swift did this, I think, for 5 nights straight in LA.
Wow.
I personally couldn't attend the concert because I saw a TikTok video where this person recorded and it was just 12-year-olds screaming for 3 hours. So I think I would have been more frustrated.
That sounds like, as a mom, and for those of you that have kids, like that sounds like literal hell on earth to me. 12-year-olds screaming.
Yeah. So no, thank you. It was really good to watch on Disney Plus. So I was really happy she had that
awesome.
Available. How about you? How's things over in Pennsylvania? Is the weather better?
Weather is beautiful, and not to sound like a whiner, but allergy season is definitely hit. So I'm not really feeling all the sneezing that I've had going on. And my kids definitely have the sniffles too. But weather is beautiful. Sun is out. It has not been raining. This is definitely the first episode I've had where we have not had like a storm. I think it's the first one where it has not been downpouring.
I know. Yeah, I know. That's
you guys,
great.
During episode 3, I kept having power outages. Andrew, who was our guest at the time, he's from Florida, so he was very understanding because I think that's just like what happens over there. But yeah, the power kept flickering. I was in and out. It was a tough one to record. So glad we've had smooth sailing today.
And thank goodness for Nick, our editor, because he really made that look so seamless. I was so scared. I was like, oh my gosh. But yeah, he made it.
It was
so
amazing.
smooth.
He made it look so seamless. You would never think that I hadn't just randomly disappeared or like the sound was spotty. They couldn't hear me.
Yeah.
All right. So my piece of news, actually, for those of us that are into these meds and prescribe these meds, really isn't that much of a surprise. If you keep up with the FDA shortage list, the FDA updated it, and shocker, there are still going to be shortages on Zepbound and Wegovy. I guess they're saying likely through like at least June. This is probably expected. But yeah, basically Wegovy and Zepbound are on shortage. Just to give a very quick recap for those of you that are listening, because I know we use all these fancy names. Semaglutide is sort of the ingredient that's in Wegovy and Ozempic. Okay, so when we talk about Wegovy and Ozempic, we're talking about semaglutide. Ozempic is commonly used for diabetics. Wegovy is used for weight loss. Okay, for tirzepatide, which again, think of like tirzepatide as being similar as like the ingredient that's in Mounjaro and Zepbound. Mounjaro is for diabetics. Zepbound is for weight loss. So the Wegovy is on shortage, has been on shortage. This has been like an ongoing shortage. And it sounds like Zepbound is also very, very hard to get right now. And so I guess the question becomes, Serena, what do people do? If you're trying to lose weight, you're hyped that these drugs are out. We keep saying how amazing they are. How do you get them? What do you do?
Yeah, I've talked to actually some coworkers, and they've been on, these medications, and they're like, oh, I can't get it for months now because it's not available. So another option is to go to your clinic that offers a compounded medication such as semaglutide or tirzepatide, which again are the active ingredients in both of these brand name drugs, and you can at least get something that way. It's not the brand name, of course, but it's still the medication, and it'll still help you with your weight loss goals. 'Cause the only thing that sucks is being off of these meds for months at a time. Your cravings come back. You eat back to your normal ways, and then you gain the weight back, and then you start at square one again. So
it can be so discouraging.
Yeah, there's so many clinics out there that offer the compounded medications. And again, we go over how to find someone that's legit. So oftentimes, if you can go there in person, it's a lot better because you know that they're real.
Yes.
And it's often with a provider, and they can give you guidance that way versus the ones online where you can just purchase it from a cart and then they ship it to you, and then you have to reconstitute it yourself. There's so many different options that you could choose from. But again, if you're in California, you can hit me up at the alistclinic.com. If you're in Pennsylvania, you can also hit up Katie. We're also in the process of getting our licenses in different states. So eventually we will let you guys know about that.
Yes, coming soon, as quickly as the boards of nursing.
The nursing gods allow us.
The nursing gods can keep it moving, but we have licensure pending in multiple states. So you'll be getting updates on that. Serena's absolutely right. If it were me in this situation, I probably would go for a clinic where I could find the compounded medication, just because I can tell you what a lot of my patients are experiencing is, we already talked in episode 3 about how difficult insurance coverage can be, but then you might have insurance coverage for the drug. You might be hyped to get it. You might even get something. You might even be able to pick up Wegovy, right? And then the next month you go to pick it up and it's out of stock. So it's just really frustrating because you don't get that consistency, which can be very, very discouraging for people. I do just also want to mention that because Zarina and I are always giving you very objective information. We're not trying to just plug our own clinics. Our clinics are super awesome, but I want you to know about all the options that you have. In addition to doing compounded pharmacies, you can just pharmacy hop and try to keep finding a pharmacy. I think Amazon Pharmacy has partnered with Eli Lilly for home deliveries. So that might be an option, but again, you might still deal with some of these shortages. Not to mention if you don't have insurance coverage, how cost could be a factor. So that's option 2. And option 3 is, again, talk to a healthcare provider, a weight loss provider, or if you don't have one, can't find one, a primary care provider, and see if there's other options for weight loss medications. As well, if you can't get the tirzepatide, you can't get the semaglutide, there are other oral options as well. But I do think that if you want these drugs, which honestly, if you're struggling with your weight, this is for good reason. These drugs work. They're amazing. It's so cool to see as a medical provider. They're amazing. But if you want these drugs, the best way to do it is to find a safe clinic and that uses a compounded pharmacy and go about it that way. If you do not live in California or Pennsylvania and you live in a state where you are looking for a clinician, you're welcome to reach out to us. Serena and I know a lot of people that have very awesome clinics. And if we're at all able to help or recommend somebody, we definitely will.
Yeah, just check out our website again, www.thewayinNPs.com. And we also can be found on social media at The Way in NPs on Instagram and TikTok. So if you want to message us there, you can do it that way, or contact at thewayinNPs.com. Now, you've heard of Ozempic face and Ozempic butt, I think is another thing. Now there's a new term called Ozempic personality. Basically, it's just some phenomenon that's been coming out now that I guess those who use the GLP-1 drugs such as semaglutide, tirzepatide, Wegovy, etc., they may experience changes in their mood and demeanor. Some have said it caused them increased anxiety, depression, and even suicidal ideation. Other symptoms may also include feelings of anhedonia, which means loss of interest in things that you previously enjoyed, and decreased libido. Studies and the FDA have found no link between the GLP-1s and suicidal ideation. But, the reason why some people may think this is because food can release feel-good chemicals in the reward system, which is known as dopamine. So the brain interprets this as pleasure. So even if you're, say, gambling or, doing anything like that, it releases that reward system. So the GLP-1s reduce cravings to food and therefore may decrease the food reward system. So if you're in a bad mood, typically you would resort to food to help comfort you. But if you're on the GLP-1, you don't really feel the need to eat. So you kind of just stay in a bad mood. You don't get that sugary treat anymore. You therefore don't get the reward system. I think it really just indicates that you have a bad relationship with food rather than the GLP-1s causing depression, because you were turning to food to make you feel better. And now you don't have that defense mechanism anymore. It's also important to address that mental health issues that come along with losing weight should be addressed with healthcare professionals, because you can lose weight and that's great, but there are mental aspects to losing weight, and it won't eliminate your depressive symptoms. So if you're already experiencing that, it's just good to seek help through a professional.
I completely agree.
Yeah. And I've actually had a patient tell me, I haven't seen this myself with my own patients, but I've had another patient tell me that she felt better because she was on antidepressants and that she was actually able to lower her dose after she was on the GLP-1s. So in general, GLP-1s seem to reduce addictive tendencies such as smoking and drinking. So for some of my clients, they'll find that they don't even want to drink any alcohol, and you don't even have to be a chronic alcoholic drinker. It's just someone who casually likes to drink a glass of wine here and there. And the reason why is because GLP-1 receptors are also found in areas of the brain that involve mood regulation. So potentially that can change one's personality if they find that they're not really interested in other things anymore. But these aren't common side effects to have personality changes. But, going off the drug can also restore the previous personality characteristics.
Yes, I agree. This does happen, but it's not a common thing. I don't have people coming in saying oh my gosh, my personality has changed. It's not really a common occurrence. Certainly the things that you were saying about addiction and how these GLP-1 receptors are in sort of the addiction centers of our brain is a really interesting thing that's getting studied further in terms of how else these amazing drugs could be used. But I don't know that if you're on this drug that you need to be wondering is my personality going to change? And I don't know that we've seen any concrete evidence, as Serena said, that there's anything that can a direct link with suicidality when on this drug.
Right. But of course, if you are experiencing any suicidal ideation, please seek help. You can call your local suicide hotline and go from there. But yeah, we're both talking about, there's really no link altogether with GLP-1s and personality changes. For this week, we got a question from Jorge, and he asked, is there a connection between weight loss and COVID vaccines?
So the short answer is no. There's no evidence or research study that shows that the COVID vaccine can cause weight loss or will even necessarily cause you to have trouble losing weight, or that there's any effect on your metabolism or anything else when it comes to the vaccine. So that's the short answer. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't be causing any type of significant metabolic changes. That being said, there are sort of some ways in which you could kind of stretch to be okay, maybe. Here's an example. The COVID vaccine, like many vaccines, can cause some side effects, right? Like nausea, fevers, chills. If you really wanted to stretch it, you could be oh man, I have chills from getting this vaccine and nausea from getting this vaccine. And because I have these mild symptoms, which typically, by the way, only last for a few days, these things are contributing to me potentially losing weight. That's a stretch. But these are sort of if we were to say, this is a question that we absolutely want to find a connection in some way, that would sort of be the stretch answer. In other words, the truth of the matter is there really is no connection between the two, unless, like I said, you want to start discussing the specific sort of, side effects of having actual COVID, which the vaccine shouldn't be doing, right? We're not really seeing the vaccine causing people to have loss of taste or smell. Right. So short answer, Jorge, is no, there really isn't much of a connection between COVID-19 vaccines and weight loss.
Right. And I wanted to add on to that, like you were saying, so the actual COVID symptoms, I found this study that said that COVID-19 could cause weight loss and risk of malnutrition. There was a study back in 2020, and they found that nearly 30% of patients lost more than 5% of their body weight. And the reason why is because they were found to have greater systemic inflammation from an inflammatory marker called CRP, and they also had worse renal function and longer disease duration. Other factors that contributed were medical treatments, being on mechanical ventilation, the emotions that they were going through. So if they were experiencing fear or sadness, that just made them not really want to eat. And then, of course, other symptoms of COVID-19, of course, you can have loss of taste and smell, so you're not really going to want to eat then. It also has some GI symptoms such as nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and stomach aches. And then if you're having constipation as well, that could impact your appetite. There's also metabolic changes that happen when you have COVID. So when you have the infection, it triggers an immune response, which leads to a higher metabolic rate and higher demand for energy. And then lastly, like Katie was saying about the stress and anxiety, that could also just predispose you to not really eating as much. And so at the end of the day, if you've had any significant unexplained weight loss, it's worth going to your provider to rule out any other causes. And so it's also just important to consult your reputable sources. So the CDC, World Health Organization, and always consult with your medical provider as well.
And let's be clear, having COVID-19 and getting the COVID vaccine are two completely different things. So Serena's referencing what happens when you get the COVID-19 infection. And that certainly, having the infection certainly can have an impact on your weight. And as Serena said, like, you definitely can have some weight loss when you're sick. Just honestly, like when you're sick with a lot of different things, it can have an impact on your weight loss. But the vaccine itself, if I had to liken it, I would say, does the flu vaccine cause people to lose weight? No, right? Mm-hmm. With the COVID-19 vaccine, it's a similar type of deal. Great question.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jorge. So we are so excited to introduce our guest, Skylar Marcoux. Skylar has a master's in exercise science and is a certified strength and conditioning specialist and registered yoga teacher. She is a director of operations with The Lab, Philadelphia's first all-inclusive concierge health and wellness company. She's also the founder of B3, a nonprofit whose mission is to provide accessible movement and realistic resources for people to be prepared, be aware, and be empowered with self-protection when walking alone. She believes that mindful movement, like yoga, plays a vital role in the weight loss journey and is excited to offer the first intimate, semi-private yoga for weight loss experience at Lifefire in May.
Yay! Welcome, Skylar.
Well, thanks for coming along, Skylar.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Okay, so first question, could you share how your journey in kind of like exercise science and yoga led you to become director of operations at The Lab and later on to founding B3?
Yeah, so I guess this should start off by saying how I know you, Katie, because my journey started way back in Howard County, Maryland, which ironically is where Katie and I are both from, but we didn't meet until a year ago at a networking event and found out that we both grew up in Howard County, Maryland, and now live in Delaware County,
which is like a really random place for us. But like, I never meet somebody that's from this random place in Maryland. So it was so weird.
Never. It was so funny. We were both saying like, oh, we're from like this small town in Maryland. And we were like, me too. Where? It was a really, really cool connection.
Oh, wow.
So it was obviously a great connection. And then to hear more about what you're doing, Katie, what was really unique in that what we kind of brought to the Philadelphia area is really complementary to each other. So I know we'll probably talk about that a little bit down the line. But to go back to your question, I grew up playing sports in the area and, had my fair share of ups and downs and wins and losses. But I quickly found that if, I put in the time and the effort, I would ultimately find more ups and more wins and more successes. And that started really building the discipline and resiliency that were the key factors in kind of building the foundation for me. And I think that's what really got me interested in exercise science and the fact that if you know what you're doing and you can put in the time and the effort into it, and you will find the results that you're looking for. So I was lucky enough to go to college on a field hockey and lacrosse scholarship, and learned a lot about different types of motivation and different types of people when I was leading our team of first year college women. A quick funny story, actually, one of my best friends, still to this day, we were doing our running test, and I thought, I was like, everybody wants to be motivated and be like a cheerleader, right? Everybody's motivated the same way, so I'm just gonna like cheer her on and be like, you got this, you go girl. And she just looked at me and she was like, shut. And I was like, oh, what? I thought I was doing something good. And then I was like, okay. And I quickly, thankfully, we're still best friends to this day, but I was like, okay, everybody is motivated differently, and everybody needs something different in different times of their life. And in that moment, that was not what she needed. So that was definitely a learning experience for me. And without that, I wouldn't have become the coach and the trainer that I was able to grow into after that. And, I really do, I love learning, and thankfully I was able to then go right into grad school for a fellowship in exercise science, and just really learning more about the science behind how we train and how the human body is built and the results that come from the work that you put into it. And then I spent most of my 20s using that exercise science background in different types of disciplines. So I had nonprofit experience. I used to run Cancer to 5K programs across the country, and that's where I got my cancer exercise training certification. And then I taught exercise science at various academic institutions, and ultimately found myself in what I thought was my dream job at the time, which was this prestigious global human performance company in Manhattan. And, I quickly found that I was just in a fitness center all day, surrounded by 4 walls and a ceiling and a floor, and anything that we thought would be helpful to the clients there, the members there, different programs. I saw some of our trainers had really passionate topics that they specialized in, so different programs that we could do, and we were just kind of shut down with anything. It was just kind of like, nope, just stand on the floor, just show them how to use the equipment, and we'll keep it that way. And I just kind of felt like there is more. We can do more, and we can help more. So what platform can I be on to be able to actually make a difference and provide more to all of these people? And so I start looking for jobs, and I had a job in Seattle, New York, and Philly, and never did I ever want to live in Pennsylvania. I don't know about you, Katie, but Pennsylvania was not on the list. But I found myself one day taking an overnight bus down to Philly to meet this guy, Aaron Bonser, and at that point there wasn't even really a website. I was kind of like, hopefully this is a good risk, or I might be an episode of 2020 coming up soon. But thankfully, he was real. His vision was vast. And I think we both equally took a risk on each other, him bringing on, his first employee, and, me coming to a city that I didn't know a single soul, and starting from scratch, basically. And now, almost 6 years later, it has proven to be probably one of the best risks I've taken in my life. So I'm really excited to be here. We're actually coming up on the 13th birthday of the lab. And so it's really exciting to see how we've grown.
So cool.
Yeah, congrats.
So cool. As an aside, I was trying to explain you to Zarina before you came on, and I was like, she's not there's anything wrong with being a yoga instructor, but I was like, she's definitely not like just a yoga instructor. She does like so much more. And then we got your bio, and
jack of
Zarina
all
was
trades.
like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to downplay it.
No, it's so
Super
impressive.
Thank you so much for saying that. So yeah, I did yoga myself as recovery, as an athlete, but I didn't start my yoga teacher training until 2018 when I first came to Philly. And that's really how I was like, okay, I'm interested in this, and I want to meet people and build a community. And thankfully I did that, because then COVID hit and everything was shut down. So I at least had that as backup, and I learned a lot through that.
Could you tell us more about the lab? I was looking at the website, and it looks like you guys offer so many different things. So I'd love for you to expand on that.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you took a look at that. Is really a big piece of what drew me to the lab and the vision that we had at the time. As a team sport athlete growing up, I really thrive in that team collaborative environment. And this idea that Erin had where we could be a fully integrated team of health and wellness Avengers was really intriguing to me, because I know my strengths and I know that I love learning, and I'm continually, trying to, make myself better so that I can provide more for my clients. But I also know that I value my team and working with other people and hearing diverse perspectives and having that collaborative environment. So we do foster teamwork, and we started as personal trainers, going to people's homes. So first eliminating that lifestyle barrier of time, where a lot of people don't have time to get to the gym, or a million things pop up, and so they cancel this and cancel that. And the first thing to go is often their workouts. So the first barrier is we just show up, and so then we're there, and you can't say no or you can't skip it, but we're going to make you do whatever it is that you do, even if that means you're multitasking. And so sometimes it means we're going to take a walk and go for running intervals while you're answering some emails. We'll make it work with what you need at that time, but you're going to do something. And so the lab is all about eliminating those lifestyle barriers so that we can help you optimize your own life, whether it's being a better parent or being a better colleague or a better friend or a better person.
That's so cool.
That's amazing. I really like that. And it really makes you stand out from other places, because I can't even recall any places, at least near me, that does anything like that, aside from, like, I guess having a personal trainer. But the fact that you are very flexible with their routine, I think is really great.
Well, keep a lookout, because I think LA is next on the list. So we might be coming out there soon. So we'll see. So we're expanding in Pennsylvania this year. So we have the suburbs, King of Prussia and Pittsburgh.
Awesome.
That we're expanding to. But LA is next up there. So keep a lookout. Inside scoop.
Yeah. I'm definitely interested.
Love that. So cool. Okay, so many people view yoga primarily as a means of stress relief. Can you elaborate on how yoga contributes to weight loss and other physical health?
Yeah, I truly believe that there's a balance to everything, especially regarding weight loss. So it's not that there's a one-size-fits-all cookie-cutter approach, which is why the lab's approach and me adding yoga into my repertoire was really important in creating this team of human performance specialists, that we can really be fully integrated to curate the needs of each individual and what they might need. So that means that it allows us to excel in our own expertise. So I can focus on the strength and conditioning and the yoga aspect that my client needs. And I have a team that I can rely on if they need massage or physical therapy, or maybe more of a Pilates approach or a different type of specialty, just to help freshen things up or get them excited again about movement. But yoga specifically, I believe, can complement all forms of exercise, because it does improve your flexibility and, like you mentioned, that stress relief. And it really enhances the recovery process of whatever your program is, your strength and conditioning or running program, or specifically recovering from your immune system. So like if you're sick and, the thought is, if I'm sick, I need to just kind of be on bed rest. And maybe there are some cases that is true, but yoga can be so adaptive that it might be a movement that you can even do when you're sick. So even different breathing movements and reconnecting your mind to your muscles is a great way to stay present and keep your physical body moving, even when you might not be able to do a ton of different movements. So it's great for mitigating injury risk, but I actually incorporate it into my clients' strength and conditioning programs in many ways. Yoga can sort of be evolved as a warm-up and a cool-down in different ways, which is pretty common. You might see dynamic movements in a warm-up and kind of static stretches in a cool-down. So my warm-ups and cool-downs are a little bit more guided with breath and flowing, versus just going into a stretch and holding it and kind of maybe being distracted. So it's about connecting your mind to those muscles instead of just performing that exercise, if that makes sense. But one of the ways that I think is a little bit more unique in how I incorporate yoga into the strength training program is in transition. So if you think about, you're going to go do a sit up and you want to get down onto the ground, how do you get down to the ground? And then, on the flip side, how do you get back up? Are you just kind of falling onto the ground, doing your sit up and then standing back up? Or are you focused on the actual functional movement of getting into the ground and standing up? And so I found that those small transitions is a great way to optimize the workout, where we can actually teach different movements like a yoga flow, how to get down to the ground, do your floor movements, and then we can still use proper functional movement to get back up. And so incorporating and meshing strength and conditioning with yoga can be especially helpful for weight loss, because you're not just focusing on one or the other, but you're also focused on the collaboration between the two, which ultimately teaches you functional movement when you get older or have injuries, or in self-protection, which we might get to later. Getting up and down from the ground is a skill that we all need and we all need to maintain. So part of a regular program is actually practicing that, even though sometimes my clients probably don't even realize it or think about it. But that's really the purpose, incorporating yoga in the transitions of the strength and conditioning programs for weight loss.
That is so cool, and something I have literally never thought about. So very interesting.
Now maybe you'll start thinking about it.
I am now. Super cool.
Yay.
And there's like so many different types of yoga too. I mean, there's like ones that you can use weights on. You can incorporate, different ways. So yoga is not just one method where you're just, standing in one position for however long. I especially like restorative yoga, especially when I'm sore or something, or my back hurts, where you're just in one position for like 5 minutes, and it just really gets you relaxed and gets things healing. So
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that is also a key piece to yoga too, is how it can be adapted in so many different ways. And it doesn't mean you're going into like a hot yoga class and going through this power vinyasa, and feeling like you have to really beat your body up. There's also restorative, there's also yin, and there's equal benefits to all different types. It's really more so that holistic approach by combining the physical poses, which we refer to as asanas, and the breathing exercises, which is the pranayama, along with meditation. So it could be a higher intensity or it could be a lower intensity, combining those elements all in one. So I'm glad that you're practicing it already.
And so piggybacking off of that, I'm the literal opposite of Serena in so many ways. And I'm somebody who's always been super intimidated by yoga. I had some traumatic hot yoga accidentally went to some type of advanced hot yoga class. They were using all these words that I didn't know. They were doing all these positions. And I was like, I don't know. I thought yoga was supposed to be peaceful, and this is not.
That is so funny you say that, because actually, before I did YouTube yoga, or just kind of like, I know exercises and movements. And when I went to go do my teacher training, I was looking at this studio that had an Ashtanga focus. So I was like, I'll just go take a class there. And I was like, oh, she just says this Sanskrit word and then people know what they're doing, and oh my gosh. And I'm like, okay. I forgot to take my socks off the first one. So I was totally in your shoes.
It's like going to Starbucks and not knowing how they do sizes, and you're like, I just want a small coffee.
Yeah,
I don't know what this tall is.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And I totally feel you. And unfortunately, at least Katie, you're still involved in different types of movement, and it didn't deter you from doing movement. But unfortunately, it does end up deterring a lot of people from even going into a studio again or trying movement again. And so that's why the first thing to know is that there are so many different types of yoga, and yoga is really this broad word that essentially just means union in our minds and our bodies, but that could be transferred into so many different ways. So the first thing definitely is to see what you have in the area and find a friend who might want to try out all of the studios with you. I actually do this a lot with friends who are trying to get into it. I'm like, let's just go try this studio and let's go try that one. And let's Google all of the studios within a 5-mile radius of your house, because convenience is key. And I'll go to the class with you, and let's just see what you think. Let's try the class together. And that way you can see, first having someone walking into a new space with you can feel a little bit more at ease than walking into a new space alone.
Yes.
And then, I kind of am happy to be the awkward one if needed. So I take a little bit of pressure off of them as well. So find a friend who's happy to do that for you and try it out. And I do recommend the wean off approach because I recognize that not everybody has resources to have a membership or to have concierge wellness or to be able to pay to go to a studio. And of course, there are tons of free resources out there on YouTube and different training apps. But if you are starting off new, you do want to make sure that you have proper technique, or you at least build that foundation so you're not going to hurt yourself. So think about it in an investment in yourself as far as more of like continuing education. So maybe you try a month you find a studio that you love, or the instructor that you love, and you invest in a month to see how much you can learn in person and how much attention they can provide for you. And then maybe you can wean off and go less the next month until ultimately you've learned enough and you can feel the right postures, so that then you can take it at home and do those free videos at home and kind of transition that way. And then maybe at least you've built that connection so you can check back in every once in a while. But that wean off approach can be accessible to everyone, hopefully in some way or another.
That's great. I love that you go with your friends, and because that's the most intimidating thing, is just walking into the studio and you're like, and everyone's an expert. So that's really cool that you do that. I love that.
Yeah, and even as an exercise scientist, I've been there. So if I've been there, then I'm sure everyone has. So,
yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So there's been a movement recently. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of it, but I mean, on TikTok, it's called like the soft girl era, where there's a focus on like low impact, low cortisol workouts, such as yoga, Pilates, bar, walking, etc. Skylar, could you expand on how these workouts can be more beneficial versus other high impact workouts such as HIIT, CrossFit, etc.?
I almost like to refer to it as maybe like the soft girl day, or maybe like more of a self-care awareness day, because I do feel like, again, there's balance to everything, and we don't all need to be this high functioning, girl boss that they say. It's kind of like soft girl era is like the anti-girl boss is kind of how they refer to it. But also we don't all need to be just okay with sitting, on the couch all day and just kind of doing this like, savasana every class. So can we find the balance? Can we have a soft girl day within our week? And can that be the recovery day that you need within the week, and finding that balance? But the overall idea is maybe looking at the difference between high impact and low impact. And there are some people, some populations, especially for injury prevention, where high impact is just not going to be helpful, whether it's for your joints, maybe you have family history that you're more prone to, something in the knees or the back, or maybe you've had an injury and you don't ever need to do something like a CrossFit or a HIIT. There are other types of movements that I think this era is bringing light to, like a low impact Pilates or bar, or like the restorative yoga classes that you've talked about that are more accessible. But at the same time, I do feel that there is more of a balance, and you don't have to just fit into one specific category or one specific era. So trying to focus on this kind of comes back to mindfulness. How do you feel in your body, and what is your body saying that you need that day? And in the exercise science background, we do track a lot of health metrics. And I know not everybody wears or is into the wearable devices, but if you have like an Apple Watch or something like that, there have been studies that show that when you wake up in the morning, check your heart rate. You have a good idea of what your base resting heart rate is. And if it happens to be higher one day when you first wake up, that's not because you just did a high intensity workout. It might be because you actually are at an elevated stress level. Maybe things are going on in your life, or maybe you have been doing high intensity for quite a few days or a few weeks. And so that resting heart rate in the morning might be an indicator that today needs to be a soft girl day, or maybe it needs to be a recovery day. So that can be one metric. If you're someone who's like, I just go, I don't have time to pay attention to how I feel, maybe that can be one way to check back in and be mindful and see what actually is going on with your body and what does your body need that day. Because I think sometimes people have a hard time making that decision, like, well, should today be an off day or should tomorrow? And then if tomorrow is, then today I need to do something. So maybe kind of using your body as an indicator as to what you might need that day. But I do think, these eras are great, and I think they do ultimately just provide awareness over maybe, different health and wellness trends that we can bring to light.
I need to get out more, because I have no idea what you guys are talking about, this soft girl thing.
I'm telling you, it's a TikTok thing. Like
Might be an
this is how
LA
I found out
thing.
about it. But I really
Yeah.
like maybe it is. Like Hot
Oh,
Girl
maybe
Walk.
No.
Have you guys
Megan
heard
Thee
of that? I don't know.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, but now it's a movement. I think someone did kind of coin that term, and now like I think there one time she had an event and there was like 400 girls that walked
Interesting.
with her, maybe in LA or something. So it's a thing. But no, I really loved how you talked about especially high stress because that contributes to high cortisol, which is a stress hormone. And if we chronically have that, it's really hard for us to lose weight. So it's really important to kind of realize are we in our life, like are we super stressed out from either work or life or whatever. And I think if you try to incorporate high stress workouts too, it's just going to add on to that. So it's good to kind of realize when you are having high stress. But I also wanted you to add on to that. You talked about mindful movement. I know that also plays a crucial role in weight loss. Could you explain the concept of mindful movement and how it could be applied in daily life beyond the yoga mat?
Yes, that's actually one of my favorite pieces because I totally understand as a busy person, like fitting an hour of a workout into your day every single day at the same time is not realistic for everyone. So how can we break that up into little micro movements and incorporate it off the mat? So I love how you phrased that because you can move even if it's not in this structured gym setting or in a structured yoga mat, which is also part of what we do with the lab is we not only bring the gym to people's houses, but also to their corporate settings or to their residential buildings. And we create these spaces in a place where they might not think, oh, I can actually get movement there, or I can be social and I can move, or I can be at work and I can add, wellness into my life. So how can we really integrate it? And, having a regular yoga practice is helpful for improving that flexibility and posture. And consistency is key. So trying to find at least a couple of times a week to incorporate your different movements is going to be important. But how can you incorporate it in every day? So think about when you're brushing your teeth in the morning, right? I think they say you should be brushing your teeth for 2 minutes. Those electric toothbrushes have like a little timer on it. Some of them even have like a 30-second timer, so you know when to move around the quadrants, right? So there's this automatic timer and this automatic time where we're stuck in one place for 2 minutes. So what can we do with that 2 minutes? Can you try balancing on one leg and be mindful in the movement and then switch to the other leg? You can do single leg calf raises, which I tell a lot of people about because that also incorporates more of that mindfulness in balance. And there's kind of like a two birds with one stone where we can also make sure we're maintaining our balance, which we kind of forget about as we age. And then all of a sudden, you never stand on one leg and you go to stand on one leg and you're like, oh, wow, like that's really hard. When did that happen? But if you do it every day, while you're brushing your teeth, then you always maintain that level of balance. So that's one. And then thinking about micro movement breaks. So yoga can teach you certain movements and awareness of your body, like pelvic tilt. A lot of people don't have that control of the pelvic tilt. And you try to say work on that anterior and posterior pelvic tilt, and they're kind of moving their shoulders and their back, and you can't quite figure out how to dissociate the hips from the shoulders. So yoga can teach you those micro movements, and then those micro movements can be used when you're sitting in your driver's seat, driving the car, when you're sitting at your desk, when you're standing at your desk. Can you practice those little micro movements to help engage the mind with the muscles, keep them active, remember those movement patterns, and also be mindful of how you feel. So when you check back in for those little micro movement breaks, you might notice, oh, wow, like my shoulders were just shrugged up. I just feel those shoulder rolls. And now I realize I've reset my posture. And
Wow.
sometimes you get caught up in work and you don't think about it, but can you set a timer and remind you to do it? And of course, with our clients, we have many ways of making sure we remind them and stay in their ear the hours of the day. But I would say thinking about those micro movements and what times of the day are you able to fit that in?
I love that. Those are like really amazing ideas in terms of just like making that part of like your day-to-day life. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so, as you know, Skylar, we have this upcoming semi-private yoga class in collaboration with you guys. So Lifefire, Weight and Wellness in collaboration with the B3 Collective. And I guess the question is, what makes this program kind of different from other yoga classes? And what can people expect when they come to this class? I know you don't just do this at Lifefire, you do it at a few other spaces too sometimes. And so what can one expect?
Yeah. So kind of going back to that wean off approach and the fact that not everybody has access to private one-on-one training, but also in a group setting or at home on YouTube, you also don't really know what you get, like what your body needs and what that personalized approach is. So these semi-private experiences are designed, there's only 4 people, so they're designed to be completely hands-on and personalized to each person so that we can hopefully find what that person needs, whether it's their flexibility or strength in the yoga practice that they can then take with them back to their regular practice. So for someone who might not have that one-on-one attention on a weekly, daily basis, they can come to the semi-private class, have this intimate experience where we're focused on yoga for weight loss, identifying all 5 senses during that class, and walk away from it with a few key tips that they can use to be personalized wherever they're taking their practice next. And then hopefully they can kind of check in again, that kind of wean off approach, but then checking in to see what do they need in their bodies, which it's just not possible to get in a group setting to have that personalized approach. Katie, you've really developed this beautiful space that feels really comforting and peaceful. So coming into the space and having this unique offering is really not, it's not an opportunity that everybody can have all of the time. So I think that is another benefit to it as well.
That's amazing. And as an aside, just to do a quick plug for the event, it is May 7th. All you have to do is bring yourself. They have yoga mats, right? You have yoga mats, Skylar, I believe. And I know we have yoga mats too. We have water. You literally just need to wear something comfortable and come. I'm going to be there. It is a very judgment-free zone because we've already established that I'm much more of a cardio and strength training girl. So this is not my typical thing. So it'll be a fresh experience for me as well. If you are a current patient of Lifefire, which by the way, you don't have to be an active patient to come to this. But if you are a patient or just somebody interested, you can reach out to either of us. The information will be in the bio, in our Instagram bio, as well as on our website, thewayinmps.com. To register for it, though, you'll go to lifefireweight.com, click on current patients, and you'll see a link to register for the yoga class there. So, and it's $40 per person, which is like super affordable to be able to get that level of attention and to be able to have somebody as awesome as Skylar showing you what to do. I'm like super excited, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much.
That's so exciting. I wish I could be there.
Oh, yeah, Serena would be all over it. She's always like, restorative yoga.
We might have to fly you out here sometime soon.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Would love to check both of your guys' places out. That'd be so fun.
It would be super fun. You definitely owe us a visit.
So Skylar, I wanted to hear more about your nonprofit, B3, which focuses on providing accessible movement and resources for self-protection. As a girl, as a woman, I feel that all the time. And so how does this mission intertwine with your work in yoga and wellness? And why do you think self-protection is an important aspect of health?
Yeah, so, I'm sure everybody has their own story and their own awareness. I know at least for me, my mom probably gave me pepper spray when I was living in Baltimore. And I was just like, oh, yeah, okay, great. I'm probably never going to need this. But I know things happen, but, I don't need it. And unfortunately, that's the space where a lot of us live in, is we're aware of it. We need to be mindful, but at the end of the day, my pepper spray is probably at the bottom of my bag, or it's at home, or, who knows, we go through our regular lives and we kind of become desensitized to the stories that we hear that are sort of far distant from us. So last year, I was walking home from the train. It was like 10 p.m. in the suburbs, and someone had approached me at the platform. And it was kind of this typical, a lot of us, specifically women, have this phenomenon where we feel like we're being paranoid, and we kind of explain things away. Like, I'm sure I'm just being paranoid. Like, nothing's actually going to happen. Like, I'm sure I'm fine. But I had an intuition. I could tell, this person was being a little bit strange. Their behavior was suspicious. And then I noticed he started to grab his bag when he saw I was getting off the train. And I was like, okay, he's following me. And my first instinct was to call my friend, because I'm like, nothing has happened. I don't need to call 911 because, nothing has happened yet. And I'm sure he's teasing me. I'm sure I'm paranoid. I told my friend, like, there's a gas station, and I was like, oh, I see you, you're picking me up. I tried to kind of play it off like that. And then he was gone. So I was like, great, I'm good. I'm just going to go home. But I was still aware, it's kind of frightening in that moment. And I had my pepper spray with me, thankfully, that my neighbor gave me. Otherwise, I would have not had the pepper spray on me. But because part of it is my physical awareness, I think from sports and from training, like had my head on a swivel and was moving pretty fast. And thankfully, at some point, eventually he came from the corner of my eye and was ready to attack me. And I had the pepper spray ready and was able to spray, and it was like magic. And, we kind of fell, and I was able to get up, run to my neighbors.
Wow.
Basically, long story short, saved me, call 911. It was this whole thing. And my first instinct was, don't tell anyone, because I don't want people to be afraid. Like, if I heard that story, I'd be like, I'm never going out again. I'm never taking the train. And then the next day I was like, no, I need to tell everyone so that everyone can be aware. Like, this story will hopefully bring awareness, because if I had maybe been more aware, I would have been like, maybe I'll call 911 just as preventative. Maybe they'll show up and they'll kind of just, deter this guy from even trying to attack me, or, who knows what it was. But the other piece was my physical capability to do that. I was just thinking of all of the people in my life and all of the people in the world. And if my neighbor hadn't called the cops, who knows who he could have been out there to get next. And would they have had the awareness and the physical capability to get away, to physically get away? And with my background in exercise science and this community group that I already had built, I had this idea of almost this like self-protection triathlon. So like, we need to be able to run to be able to protect ourselves, to get away in the moment. We need to be strong and aware and have overall kinesthetic awareness of our body. So that comes with overall strength training. You can't just be in the moment and all of a sudden, when you need it, be able to get away. So all of that comes with training. And then the yoga, the mindfulness, the recovery. So then how can we regain that confidence and be empowered to fearlessly walk alone? It's not to be afraid and never go out and not really live your life, but how can we do it educationally and together as a community? And so that's sort of originally where the idea came from. But going back to 2020, when our yoga studio shut down, we started doing backyard meetups actually in my backyard, just to kind of make movement accessible and give people still that community that we once had at our studio. And we started inviting neighbors and friends, thinking everyone could benefit from this sort of social community and very relaxed, just kind of free movement. And I always thought about turning that into a nonprofit, but there wasn't really a cause behind it. And when this movement happened and this incident last year, I was like, well, we have this community. So one of the pieces in self-protection is knowing your community and feeling safer around the people that you're around. So you at least know who to call or know more people that are close to you. And then also getting people to move together. So can we help make it accessible? Because I know not everybody can afford those resources like we've talked about. So what can we do to make it accessible so people can train and can build that strength and awareness so that we can all protect ourselves? Because even if you live in a family of 10, at some point, you're probably finding yourself walking alone throughout the day at some point. And so we all do need to rely on ourselves at the very least to protect ourselves. So that's kind of where we started, and we just became incorporated as a nonprofit a few weeks ago, actually. And so
congratulations, that's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so glad you shared that.
That is such a wow. That was such a story. That was I'm so glad that you're okay. Yeah.
Thank you. And hopefully it will just remind you and your family and your loved ones, and just remind people to be aware and share the story. And we actually did start on Instagram sharing your story, wherever kind of story it is. Some people just felt strange in the moment, nothing happened, but even sharing that story builds awareness. And so they were posting someone else's story. So we have a link in our Instagram as well, where you can anonymously share your own story, which can be healing and powerful in itself, even just like typing your story out and sending it into the void, but then also reading other people's stories. So hopefully that can bring awareness and also just kind of help you to remember to train for self-protection and just be aware.
Yeah, I think that's so important because if you're in that
Yeah, for sure.
situation, like it's fight or flight, and some people can freeze in that moment. So it's really important to have like that muscle memory if you've done the self-protection classes or training. And especially as a female, like I was mentioning before, I mean, I kind of do the same thing. Like I will think the worst of everybody, and I'm like, what is this person gonna do? What do I have ready? It happened to a coworker of mine. Like, I mean, she was okay, but she was walking back to the parking lot from the hospital, and it's the same parking lot that we all park at. And she was like, I feel like this person is following me. And she was just really scared in that moment. And like, luckily there was another car coming out. So she was kind of waving them down like, hey, can I
Oh,
ask for
good.
some help? Yeah. And so like, luckily the person was like, yeah, I saw that
Yeah.
guy approaching you, and, I was going to come over to you anyway. But,
Ah,
it's just
thank
so
goodness.
scary in these moments. So.
Super
Yeah,
scary.
definitely share if she wants to share her story, because even something like that is so important to hear, because you think, oh, it's a commute that you always do, you always walk to the car, but you still need to be aware in those moments. And then that person who saw something was suspicious and drove over. That's another thing too, is
Yes.
how can you help be aware of other people too. So that's a really helpful story, but it's so frightening in the moment, and then it takes time to recover, I'm sure, for her to then feel confident walking to her car again
Right.
for a
Yeah, so now
while.
she waits like for somebody like, hey, are you walking back? We'll like walk
Yeah,
together because we're all like, okay, yeah, let's do that.
yeah. And but the buddy system, but sometimes
Yeah.
it's not the case. But like as much as possible, can you do things like that, which is such a smart idea.
That's so important, I think, just to like be aware. We all can just, and I feel like when we're going places, all of us are usually like so focused on trying to get to where we're going that or it's just thinking about other things or zoning out or wearing headphones that it's very hard sometimes to remember to be aware, but it's so important.
There are so many resources out there, but the more little pockets of resources, I think the more people we can reach and have it be top of mind. And I know I've taken a self-defense class maybe like 2 years ago, and I was like, I'm so empowered, like I could totally take anyone. But then it's been like 2 years, and I'm like, what was that technique I learned? I can't really remember. Like if someone attacked me from the back, I would be
Mm-hmm.
like useless. So like how can we help bring those resources so that people can have it be more realistic and more top of mind in a regular basis, because it really just becomes not the last thing that we're focused on, but the first key that we all can focus on for weight loss, for our health, for self protection. And it goes back to motivation. Everybody's motivated differently. So if you're really just not motivated to exercise, to eat well, like you're aesthetically, you don't really, maybe some people just aren't motivated by how they look or how they fit in their clothes. One thing that hopefully can be motivating is the idea of protecting yourself, and the stronger and the healthier that you are to be able to be aware, is going to put you in the best possible position to protect yourself. So hopefully that can be motivating to some people who are just struggling to find that motivation.
Exactly, exactly. Because if you're struggling with your weight so much that you're struggling with sort of like basic day-to-day movements, you find yourself getting exhausted or short of breath. Imagine trying to avoid an attacker. It would be
Mm-hmm.
tricky.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's a good way to put it. And I know you
Hmm.
guys mentioned this once before, because a lot of these topics, like I think in one of your podcasts, you were talking about, weight loss and how it does have this sort of cliche that it's women, and kind of women come in and they're the only ones looking for it. But there are men too, and you are open to men too, and you are working with men too. And it's the same thing with self-protection. I was actually talking about the foundation, and I never once mentioned women, even though women are often a higher percentage of assaults and
Sure.
attacks, but it does happen to men too. And actually, some of the stories that we've gotten are men, because we just collect pronouns. So some people have identified as he and have a story, and they've been attacked. And so self-protection is really, it's something that we all can focus on, and all kind of come together as a community and hopefully feel safe in all aspects.
And as an aside, if you ever are attacked or harmed in any way, Skylar's absolutely right that you should always seek help. I think as females, we're often told that like it's okay for us to seek help, but definitely even males, where I think you guys, I don't know if both of you know this, but I used to be a forensic nurse. So I used to perform rape kits and forensics on people all the time out here in Delaware County. And I can just tell you that there's a lot of male victims, obviously mostly female victims, but there are a lot of male victims. And oftentimes they seem to be the ones who delay coming forward because they're sort of stuck with this, well, I'm a dude, like I can't go and get help. So I think that is awesome that you're emphasizing that this initiative is for everybody and not just for females.
You are the perfect person to talk to. You have the perfect experience. I think for all of our worlds are colliding in so many ways. It's really incredible.
So many ways.
But that is a good point. And we have been working with the local police department here, and they 100% recommend don't wait. Even if you feel skeptical, they would rather you call and have it be nothing than to wait too late and something traumatic happens. So call 911. It's never the wrong time to call.
How do you incorporate nutrition and lifestyle changes into your yoga for weight loss programs? I think we touched on this a little bit before, but I guess if I were somebody who's trying to lose weight, a lot of people think like yoga's not going to help me with my weight loss. Like I'm just saying like namaste or whatever it is that people think, but that's like, that's the thought process of a lot of people. People are like, I should go to HIIT class. Like I shouldn't be doing this. So tell us sort of like how, if you're trying to lose weight, yoga is beneficial.
Yes, that's such a good point. I think we're gonna soon, Katie. Yoga does promote relaxation when done appropriately and reduces stress by activating the parasympathetic nervous system. And when we are relaxed and we're eating in that more relaxed state, it can actually help prevent emotional eating and cravings, and it can cultivate more of a body awareness. So your body actually can understand how to digest and absorb the food that you're eating when you are more mindful. And that's one thing that yoga can teach. I know someone was telling, they're like, oh, she's such a good yoga. And I'm like, I think that's like the only time that I'm calm. But that's good to know that is how I come off as a yoga teacher, because that is what yoga is supposed to give you. It's supposed to bring that calmness over you. And I think that's one of the biggest pieces that I see with clients, honestly, with myself, like with all things is, I love food to the point that I kind of, forget, or I'm so busy but you have to eat, it's a survival skill. Like you actually have to eat and you have to fit it into your day. And so we are all eating on the go mindlessly. But if we can take those skills that we learn from yoga, we can practice them and build habits of being more mindful and just being more aware, even if it's just like one meal a day. It's not that you have to do it all the time. But if you can do it at least, one snack or one meal a day and start building that habit, you can actually change the way that your body recognizes that food and knows what to do with it. And so nutrition, to your point, nutrition is a big piece in the whole lifestyle change, and which I also appreciate too. For both of you, I know, again, I keep referring back to what you've talked about before, but you both recognize that, even as medical weight loss nurse practitioners, that there's a lifestyle component. It's not just taking the drug and you're good, but there also does need to be building those habits and adapting the lifestyle so that you start to build and gain the nutrition and the exercise piece along with it.
Yeah, there's this book that I love, and I've recommended it to some clients, called The Joy of Half a Cookie, and it does talk about mindfulness. Have you read it?
No, but I love that name. I was like, I have to read that.
Essentially, it talks about how mindfulness is super important because oftentimes when we're stressed out, some people seek food for comfort. And oftentimes it's like the cookie or donuts in the break room. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to have maybe half of this. And you keep coming back, and it's really just thinking about, okay, it's okay to enjoy a cookie, but if you are mindful about it, it'll make you eat less of it because you're not just eating mindlessly like you had talked about. So I really like that book because a lot of the times we are very stressed out from everything. And then food is just kind of a go-to. So it's really important to think about that aspect. And aside from the medication, of course, eventually once you wean off of it, or if you're, not taking it at all anymore, it's so important to kind of go back to, okay, how can I think about food differently and the relationship with food too? So yeah, it's a really great book. Again, it's called The Joy of Half a Cookie. I forget the author's name, but they'll pop up on Amazon or Google. So just wanted to throw that in there.
I'm going to look that up myself.
I'm going to look it up. It sounds like something that my patients would probably really find helpful and relevant too. I want to read it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a really good read. So definitely recommend. Back to the lab, actually. So, you're part of Philadelphia's first all-inclusive concierge health and wellness company. How do you see this model shaping the future of wellness, especially in urban settings where access to personalized health resources might be limited?
I really think that's a great segue because I think even this mindful eating piece is a piece of that because food is such a big piece of our culture, especially in Philadelphia. We have incredible restaurants and very talented chefs, and curating this wellness and food lifestyle type of amenity is really important to our society, our culture, and I'm sure not just Philadelphia, I'm sure LA too. But really, it's kind of trending in that aspect. And so originally, so Aaron Bonser is our founder, and his original vision was to bridge the gap between what he had access to as a professional athlete and then what he was able to provide to his general population clients as a personal trainer and what they had access to in commercial gyms. And there's like this huge gap. But it's something that we all need, and we're all performing in different ways, whether it be at home or at work or in the world, even if it's not on the field or on the court as a professional athlete. So our integrated platform was designed to democratize access to elite human performance specialists and equipment that you might need so that you can be a bigger picture in your life. And that requires growing our team and being able to help more people in that way. You can only help so many people one-on-one, but you can be a part of something so much bigger when you work together as a collective whole. And so I do think that our model is starting to shape the future of wellness by eliminating the lifestyle barriers. Concierge is not necessarily new or unique. There are wellness specialists that go and travel to people's homes, but the integrated platform of being concierge is being able to communicate with your entire wellness team, whether you have a massage, a physical therapist, a dietitian, a personal trainer, and everybody works together on your program is what I haven't found anywhere else, and it's something that we're really building and growing, and I think is really such a unique aspect that can really benefit people by having this sort of one-stop shop and not having to think about what else they need to encompass their overall lives. And I know it's so hard because so many people have this whole list of I need to make this doctor's appointment and then I need to go here and I need to make this appointment and that, and all of a sudden 2 years later, like the list is still there and the list is still growing. So if we can try to again help eliminate that lifestyle barrier and bring it to them and just help curate that experience for them, then they can go off and change the world in the way that they are, and we can help take care of them in that way. So that's I think
Wow.
how it's starting to evolve.
That's great.
Very cool. Any like trends in particular in yoga or wellness that you're super excited about? Are there sort of like goals that you have in terms of how you want to personally evolve in your skill set?
I think in most fields, but specifically in the health and wellness space, continuing education it's crucial. It's mandatory in the space where we're constantly learning more and more research is being done and we're finding out more. The more that we need to know, and the more that we learn that there is still to know. And so thankfully each certification has a different governing body. And so there is a ton of different continuing education opportunities out there in order to maintain our certifications. But that's also one of the benefits that I found of having a team. We have, like our own group chat, with our entire team. That's just like for off topic fun. So if there's like an article that someone's read, we have like an Instagram group chat too. If there's like an article that someone's read or like something new trending that's happening in the health and wellness space, or, maybe one of our aquatic specialists found something in the swim space that I am not following, they'll share it. And so we can all stay up to date on things that are outside of our scope too. So as a team, we're helping each other stay current, which I think is really beneficial and is, and I personally am always looking to grow and learn and find out more space. Like now, I think I want to kind of come back to that mindful eating because before COVID, we had a really cool event where we had a private chef and one of our clients wanted to have a special lunch for her and her girlfriends. And so the chef curated a healthy menu that's well-nourishing foods. And then I created, this mindful eating experience where they got to enjoy it, but focused on the specific senses. And then COVID hit, so nobody was touching and eating or doing anything together. But it's something that I would love to really bring back because, again, it's tying in the aspects of yoga with eating, with food, which I love, which we all need. And how can we help promote that in more of like a social wellness space? And so I think that is one space that I kind of would like to grow and I see trending in the future. What's really cool is like themed yoga, like themed parties, like wellness is starting to be cool now, you know, like bachelorettes are starting to do yoga on the beach, you know, or, you know, they're starting to like plan, like on the weekend, it's not just like, let's go out for happy hour, but it's like, you know, let's go do yoga or let's go, you know, there's like this yoga in the park. It's fun. It's cool. It's social now. So that's a great way to make it a part of lifestyle. And that's something that I'm really excited about. How can we add movement into life and exploring?
Oh my gosh, Zarina and I have a little like future fantasy about having a wellness retreat for the Weigh-In podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, girl, she's definitely on the list.
Oh my gosh,
She's definitely going to be on the list of people we had to have. It would be so much fun.
Yeah.
Yes, that'd be so fun. All in.
That would be so awesome.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep you guys posted.
Oh, for sure. As an aside, can you just tell us like where you guys go? So for people that are listening to this, we've got people that, yes, are like in LA and Cali, but even here, as you know, Pennsylvania, we're like tri-state area. So we have people from Delaware, Jersey, Philly, outside of Philly listening. So what are your guys' sort of area of domain?
Great question. So we did start in Center City, Philadelphia, and our 15-mile radius does start from there. And since then, we have now grown. So we're hitting those southern parts of Jersey, the Wilmington, Delaware area. This year, growing out to the western suburbs, the mainline King of Prussia area, and then Pittsburgh, which is kind of like the furthest out. A hop, skip, and a jump.
Girl, it's pretty far out. You ever driven there? It's far. I feel like I'm driving to Antarctica.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I think I've only been there once. It's that far. But the also really exciting piece is not just since COVID, but we also have a complete remote platform. So we have some corporate partners in Philadelphia that have teams, families all over the world. And so through that remote platform, we can help people all over. So we have a few people in LA, and different companies who want to try to help bridge the gap within their teams. Even if they are on a remote team, that can be a great way to try to connect for people who are expanding outside of Philadelphia as well.
Very cool. Love that. And lastly, for those just starting their journey into yoga with the goal of losing weight, what advice would you give them to stay motivated and incorporate yoga effectively into their wellness routine?
So start small. And one thing that you can do to start if you're like really pre-contemplation, you're not even like there, you're not even ready. This week, maybe just start documenting how you feel and writing down the time of the day and how you feel. So 3 p.m., I'm really feeling stressed. I'm really feeling angry. I'm really feeling hungry, whatever it is. And maybe for a week, just write down the time and feeling, just simply like that. And then give yourself just a minute to reflect on that weekly analysis. And maybe you start to recognize, okay, every day at 3 p.m., I'm going to pick up my kids from school and I'm super hungry and I'm super stressed and I'm super angry. That tells you something. Maybe that tells you where you can start incorporating yoga to start. Remember those micro movements that we talked about. So maybe either right before you leave or maybe in the car on the way to get to your kids, you can start by incorporating mindful breathing and those micro movements of pelvic tilt while you're driving. That's simple and doable and realistic for you. And again, it's not a one size fits all cookie cutter approach. So that's why it's kind of hard to give an answer, but try to identify for yourself first and see where you can start identifying those areas that you can focus on. And then the most piece is accountability. Can you make it social? Can you make it fun? It's not about trading in your social time for a healthy time, right? You can still have your friends. You can still have your family. There's family fitness that is trending now. We have a whole kids lab program. You know, can you run around and play games with your kids? You know, how can you make it a part of your life so that it's not trading one for the other? And hopefully they can also hold you accountable too.
That is great advice. And just as an aside, I know I made lots of jokes about not being that into yoga because I'm more of a cardio girl, but I did just want to share that I used to be an ER nurse during COVID. I worked at multiple emergency departments. It was probably one of the most stressful times in my life. Remember, we didn't know what COVID was. I was in these rooms for hours. People were passing away, people of all ages. It would be the longest shift, sometimes 12 hours, sometimes 16 hours. And I can tell you that the thing that saved me is I would tell people, like, I just need 10 minutes. And I would pull up the Peloton app. They have yoga there. And they have these 10-minute standing yogas.
Yes.
And I would do the yogas
Yes.
in the bathroom stall. I would take all my gear off. I would go, I'd say it, and I would do my yogas in the bathroom stall. And it literally is the thing that I did to just like clear my mind and calm down so that I could be there for my patients and for my coworkers. So I do want to say that when it comes to mental health, yoga can be so key, so key. So thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us during this podcast. Can you please tell us how to reach you and how to find you?
Our website is younidthelab.com. You can find all of our, even if you're not in the greater Philadelphia area, you can find all of our remote programming there. And if you fill out the contact form, I'll happily schedule an intro call with you and just kind of talk through what it is that we can help you with, you or your team or your family. And then if you are in the greater Philadelphia area, the B3 Collective community, it's the letter B, the number 3 Collective community. We're also on Instagram and Facebook. So thank you so much, Katie and Serena. It's really incredible what you guys are doing, and it's so great to be a guest on your show.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. The event again is when, May 7, you guys said?
This one is private, so 6 p.m. Tuesday, May 7th at Lifefire Wellness. There are only 4 spots available, so definitely grab your space and start to get prepared for an intimate experience. And like Katie mentioned, you don't have to bring anything. If you are super, tied to your yoga mat, or you really like to have your own space, you're welcome to bring your own, but we will have absolutely everything for you. And we're really looking forward to meeting you and seeing you there.
Awesome. And all this information to sign up will be in the show notes or in the website, thewayinNPs.com. So,
yep.
Yeah. All right. To close this out, Skylar is going to do a mindful eating meditation and breath work.
Awesome. Perfect way to close it out. So if you happen to be listening to this while you're eating, then this is perfect. If not, you can also practice this before eating. You can kind of just use it as a visualization for when your next meal is, and even just take notes or pause this portion and you can replay it. The more you practice it, the easier it becomes. So let's just dive right in. The goal of mindful eating is to practice eating with attention to the food and intention with what you're doing. So the idea is, can we make your meal an experience? And we're going to start by before you even take a bite. So before you even start, think about any distractions that are in your way. Is the TV on? Is your phone nearby? Are the kids running around screaming at you? What distractions are available, and how can you remove them or at least eliminate them in some way or minimize them? Next, sit down in a space specifically for eating. A lot of times we're in the car, we're running around, we're standing. Can you designate a specific space in your office or in your home where it's specifically just for eating? And then once you sit down, take a few deep breaths and start to engage your senses. So we're going to start by thinking about, how are you feeling before you eat? Can you start by rating your hunger on a scale of 1 to 10? And once you identify how hungry you are, start to identify what you're thinking when you're hungry. So if you're really like an 8, 9, or 10, are you thinking ravenous, eat everything you can? Are you thinking clearly? Are you angry? Are you stressed? And starting to identify how you feel and what you think at different hunger levels can also be a great way to be aware of how that makes you feel. So now that you have your hunger scale, we still haven't taken a bite yet. Now notice, are you eating because you're hungry or because others are eating around you? Or are you stressed? Are you feeling emotional? If you really notice that your hunger level is more like a 3 or a 4, then maybe you're not really hungry and you already sat down to eat, maybe just because. And then start to think, do you want something convenient because it's not going to take too long to prepare? Are you rushed? Is it just a craving? Start to identify what the item is that you chose to eat and why you chose to eat that. Can you even answer those questions? Maybe there's some kind of prep work that's involved. So how does it smell when you're cooking or preparing it? Can we start to tie into those senses? And it's not possible all the time. Sometimes we have to be on the go. But if you do have an opportunity to prepare your meal, that can be another way of inducing this mindful eating because you're already involved with the preparation. You're already invested in how that meal is coming together. So are there any exciting details you notice about the item? Are there specific sounds that you hear? Is it sizzling when it's being cooked? Do you even know where the food came from? Can you start to identify each different item? Did it come from the ground? Is it an animal? Did it come from a grocery store? How far back can you even think about where these items came from? And then you can start thinking about your gratitude of the food before you start to eat it. Is it something that you hold in your hand? Is it something that you can feel, you can touch? Is there a texture before you even take a bite? Did you choose that item because of the cost, because of the taste, because of the availability? What are the reasons why you chose it? Is it because one of your friends ordered it and so you just ordered the same thing? And did you even think about what nutrients are in the item? Or can you start thinking about that now? So these are all questions and all sensations that you can start thinking about before you even take the first bite. To start creating this experience of mindful eating. And we're already getting our nervous system to relax and to prepare for our mindful eating experience. So now whether you are actively eating or you're just practicing this moment, you should already start to feel that relaxation. And now for the fun part, it's time to take a bite. So first, take a bite and see how does it feel in your mouth going through those 5 senses again. How does it feel in your mouth? How many times did you have to chew it or did you drink it? How does it sound when you chew? How does it feel when you swallow? Can you identify the complex flavors that you can taste or smell? Are there different colors you see? And if not, maybe that can be another intention for next time is can you try to eat the rainbow and see how many colors you can add onto your plate? And again, just noticing what sensations come to mind when you're eating that first bite. And then take a deep breath, put the fork down or put the item down if it's a handheld item, put the utensil down and sit there and take a deep breath in and out of your nose. And even if you're not eating right now, can you just visualize doing this? Take a bite, put it down, hands free, deep breath in and out of your nose. How did it feel? After that first bite, after the meal, can you compare each taste? If you have the benefit of sharing that meal or that item with others, can you compare and have a conversation about what sensations you're having together? And then start to notice, how is it feeling in your stomach? Are you starting to notice when you're getting full? Can you start to identify those hunger levels that you identified right before we started on that scale of 1 to 10? Is it starting to change? With each bite, can you notice that that number is decreasing and decreasing until you finally get closer to a 3 or a 2, and recognizing when your body doesn't feel hungry anymore. So practicing this in visualization is helpful, but also with each bite, also with each meal or with each snack, whenever you have the time to do so, even if you can just set a timer for 5 minutes. And maybe at the beginning of your meal, you have your timer for 5 minutes and you practice the before, during, and after sensation. And then once the timer is off, if you have to run, you have to eat the rest, go ahead. But at least you've started off in practicing the habit of mindful eating and connecting your mind to your body. And our closing meditation is a breathing sequence, the 4-2-6 breathing sequence that you can practice anytime throughout the day, but specifically to be mindful before meals. So if you have to throw something in the microwave or do some quick prep work, that's a great time to practice this closing meditation that we'll do just a few rounds together. We'll go ahead and go through the closing meditation where we inhale for the count of 4, hold our breath for the count of 2, and then exhale for the count of 6. And we'll flow through that sequence a few times for practice, but if you have more time, you can always continue through that sequence. Let's all just start by breathing in and out of your nose nice and evenly. And then if you feel safe in your space, you can even try closing your eyes and really being mindful of what the breath feels like. And let's start by taking a deep inhale through your nose and exhale through your nose. And we'll inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold for 2, 1. Exhale. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale. 2, 1. Hold. Exhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Slowly start to come back into space, breathing evenly in and out of your nose. And take note in how you feel. Slowly start to open up your eyes, maybe wiggling your fingers. You might have noticed your body completely starting to relax, starting to come back into space. And remember that 4, 2, 6 count can be really helpful in being more mindful throughout the day, even if you just go through 3 or 4 series of that. And then if you have more time, you can just keep going and keep going, and as long as you have. So I hope you both feel a little bit more relaxed, whether you were eating or not, something that you can practice. And again, you can feel free to reach out, either message us on Instagram or through our website, and I'd be happy to hear your story and see how we can help.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Skylar.
You're
That's so
amazing.
great.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you both so much. It's so nice to see you both also.
So nice to see you too. It's been a pleasure, Skylar. Thank you so much.
Thank
Have a great
you.
rest
You
of the
too.
day.
Happy mindful eating.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to subscribe to our podcast, give us a rating, and share with your family and friends who might find it helpful.
And remember, we love hearing from our listeners. Connect with us on our social media channels or shoot us an email with your thoughts, questions, or suggestions for future topics. Don't forget to check out our website, www.thewayinandpeace.com, and to follow us on Instagram at thewayinandpeace.
If you need one-on-one help with your weight loss or wellness journey, book a private consultation with us. The A-List Clinic can be reached at www.thealistclinic.com or on Instagram and TikTok at The A-List Clinic.
And my clinic, Lifefire Weight and Wellness, can be reached at www.lifefireweight.com or on Instagram and TikTok at Lifefire Weight.
Thanks again for tuning into the Wayne Podcast with your hosts, Katie and Zarina. Until next time, take care and be well.
The information in this podcast is for general information only. It is not intended as medical advice and should not be relied upon as a substitute for medical consultation with a qualified medical provider familiar with your medical needs.